Welcome to the Jungle Discipleship School podcast. My name is David Small, and this is the New Year's edition of the Jungle Discipleship School podcast. I'm really thankful that you are with us, and Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. It's been a while since I last put out a episode, and so I thought it's time, and I thought what better time than to do it on New Year's Eve. It's New Year's Eve here in Thailand, and the last episode we did was almost over a month ago. Wow, November 26th. I'm just looking at it now, and man, we did a lot on mission, and there's been a lot going on in the JDS world since then. And so I just want to bring you up to speed. But mostly and first and foremost, I want to just say Merry Christmas. I hope you had a really beautiful Christmas season. I hope it was filled with family feuds and boring church services and overcommitments and overeating and overspending and oh, wait a minute. No, that's the wrong script. That was for the other podcast. I hope your Christmas was full of love and joy and happiness and gratitude. And just that you had a lot of fun and that you could take a break and a breather. And now we stand on the doorstep of 2025. And it feels like there's a lot of, maybe this is just me and my life and JDS, but it just feels like there's a lot of anticipation about what's coming, what 2025 will bring. And if I'm honest, I felt that way about 2024. I had big plans coming into 2024. I had left working for the Free Burma Rangers after a decade and was trying to start the Jungle Discipleship School and had no idea what it would look like and what would happen. And I had big ideas. And when I was, right around this time, as I'm recording this, the last 5-bullet newsletter of 2024 is going to be sent out. And so if you're not a part of our newsletter list, I think you'll love it. There's music recommendations, Spotify playlist on this New Year's edition, and book recommendations and quotes to ponder and what's going on with JDS and with my life. And anyways, 5 bullet points every random time, and usually on Wednesdays. Today's Tuesday, but that's a whole different thing. So check it out. You can go to junglediscipleshipschool.com. On the bottom of every page, there's a newsletter sign up there. But I can't remember what I was talking about with this. But yeah, I sent out the newsletter today, and yeah, there's a lot going on. And there was a lot as I was reflecting, and I just took some time this morning to have some honest reflection of the last year. And we started a TV show, which, okay, TV show is maybe a strong word to use, but I don't know what else to call it. Video series. And we released 9 roughly 30-minute episodes of this video series that we've done. And if you haven't watched it, they're fun, they're cheesy, they're something. And you can go check that out and on our website. And we put out a podcast, and we started a podcast in 2024. And my buddy Cam, I have to give a shout out to Cam, and he told me that most podcasts don't make it past their 8th episode, and this episode will be our 27th episode. And I see these people, these podcasters that I follow or pay attention to, and celebrating their 100th episode or their 400th episode. And we've done 27 of these, and I get it now. Okay, you put out 100 episodes of content, like it's something to celebrate. And so when we get there one day, maybe a few years from now, we'll celebrate our 100th episode. But big news, exciting, ground shattering, earth shaking news is that JDS is now on Instagram. If you are on Instagram, you can go to instagram.com/jungle discipleship school and you can find also, I thought Instagram and Facebook was the same thing. And my buddy Han, he told me I was a boomer because I referred to it as the Instagram. And every time he and I were talking about it, he said, "You're such a boomer. It's not the Instagram. It's just Instagram." And I thought it was the same company and the same thing. And if you were on one, then it meant you were on the other. And then I was informed recently, actually, my friend Carla Treadway, you should check her out on Instagram. She has a real legit page. What do you call it? Feed. Anyway, she informed me that there's two different demographics of people. And older people tend to be on Facebook, and the more hip, younger, modern, cool, I don't know what the word is, there's just a different group that's on Instagram. And if you're appealing only to one, you're missing out on the other. And so we're now on Instagram. Jungle Discipleship, no. Instagram.com/Jungle Discipleship School. And we'll have some fun over there, as we do everywhere. And just a visual, I guess. It's a visual of what we do. And so go check us out, follow us, like us, share us, subscribe to us, whatever. You can find us now everywhere. My disdain for social media has died. No, it hasn't died. It's still passionate, but I just am begrudgingly doing social media. So, because it's the reality, when you have these businesses, when you have a business or a foundation or an event or anything, if you're not on social media, it doesn't really exist. And if you allow me to, come back to blabbering about my newsletter again, before I had 5 bullet points, and one of the bullet points was something along the lines of, projects I'm working on. Sounds very productive and cool, and this has to do with my disdain to social media, is that social media is like a highlight reel of our lives. It's not the reality. We don't ever post photos of the worst days of our lives. We don't post our depression and, horrible thoughts about others on Facebook. I mean, some people do, but the normal group of us in society, we tend to just post the highlight reel of our lives on social media. And then we look at the highlight reel of everybody else's lives and kind of end up in this comparison of oh, well, if only I did that, or wow, this guy, his kids and his family is just perfect and they never fight and the kids never complain. And anyways, I just am not interested in the highlight reels. So I didn't have any social media for almost a decade. And in my newsletter, I had projects I was working on, but even that to me was a bit highlight reel-ish. And so I changed it to highlights and lowlights because I wanted to be honest. And, missionaries, they send out these updates, they send out these newsletters, and it tends to be the highlight reel of life as, oh, I'm a perfect Christian and I do everything amazing and I baptized 7,000 people this year. And, we advertise our successes in there, but I wanted to also include lowlights in the newsletter because it's just the reality of the life that we live in. And so, my disdain, that was mainly about why you shouldn't, social media sucks. But we're on social media: Facebook, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Vimeo. We're not on TikTok because that's just owned by the Chinese government and they just spy on you and will put me in jail one day. So you cannot pay me enough money to get on TikTok. But anyways, lots have been going on, and I don't even know where to go with this podcast, but I think what I want to start with is JDS by the numbers. And just to recap some interesting statistics about JDS. And we're done the first semester. We did our mission. It was super cool. We went to Shawdaw Township in Karenni State, and we were visiting some villages there. I'll have to do another update about mission-specific stuff, but at the end of our mission, we did a semester survey before we took a break, and so we've been on a break for about 10 days now, and January 2nd, we're heading back to JDS, and January 5th or 6th, whatever the Monday is, we'll begin semester 2. We've got a super awesome semester 2. I'm super excited about it. I think it's going to fly by. We need your prayer for that. But at the end of semester 1, at the end of the mission, we did a survey, and there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sections, 8 sections of survey with a few, like 7 or 8 questions in each section. And all the students had to fill this out, and our junior staff had to fill this out. And so I just wanted to talk through some of these statistics and these numbers with you, because I just think it's really interesting, and or at least just highlight a few, because maybe you're not that interested in statistics on New Year's Eve. But hey, that's okay. You're with us. So there was 30 responses, 30 students and staff that took the survey. And so if I give you a number out of 30, that kind of gives you an idea. But I'll try to use percentages. And a lot of it was a scale, a 1 to 10 scale. So like basically if you were a 7 to 10 or 7 above, it meant you were like highly positive about it. And if you were a 4 to 6 on the scale, you're kind of medium, mediocre. And if you're below a 4, it means you're not that good, not that interested. And so 65% were highly positive that they would recommend JDS to a family member or a friend. And 30% were medium. So like there was like nobody that was in the negative category that they wouldn't recommend JDS to a friend or family member. And so that was really interesting and encouraging. We have camp jobs. 83% of the students were highly positive that they enjoyed and liked the food at JDS. So that's something. And 75% were highly positive they liked family dinner. So that's cool too. And another interesting thing, 73% thought that JDS needed stricter rules. And this is something that I have a challenge with. I'm not a very good disciplinarian. And, you know, we talk about leadership, we talk about discipleship, and we don't often talk about discipline. And I'm a big relationship guy when it comes to sharing the gospel, when it comes to sharing my faith with people. I really believe that true relationship is how you share that. And so when it comes to rules, I tend to have different rules for different people. And for those, you know, educators or teachers or, you know, whatever, military people out there, they're going to cringe as I say this, but certain people break certain rules for certain reasons. And when you have a relationship with that person and you understand why they've chosen to break that rule, the response and the discipline that they deserve may not look equal to that of another person. And so I tend to lean towards not having really very many, if any, written rules, because I'm also the kind of person that is, you know, if we agree on this, if you and I agree on something, I'm going to hold you to that. And I expect you to hold me to it. And whether it's good or bad, if this is what we've decided, if this is what we've agreed on, and this is what the rule is, it's now my duty and obligation to uphold that rule. I do not want to be a police officer. I do not want to just start policing a bunch of rules at JDS. And so I tend to not have many rules, but 73% of our students in the survey said they think JDS needs stricter rules. And so I found that very interesting. I mainly think it has to do with people showing up late to roll calls or different things like that, or drinking, which we talked about on the last podcast. And but anyways, I think it's just interesting. And we had an incident on the mission that we were just on where a bunch of the students got drunk, and I decided to take their phones away for a week. And this is the other part of rules, is that there's not a lot of, so JDS is not a dry campus. And there's a reason for that, is because, well, one of the reasons is because I enjoy drinking a glass of wine, and I enjoy a great cold beer, although you don't get many cold drinks in the jungle, but I enjoy a glass of wine, and I don't think that there's anything inherently wrong with drinking. In fact, Jesus's first miracle was making the equivalent of 900 bottles of grade A wine to allow a beautiful wedding celebration to keep going. And so I don't think Jesus inherently had anything against wine or alcohol. But I do believe Jesus is very clear. The Bible's very clear about drunkenness. So for me at JDS, I want to model, this is really hard to do. I want to model an environment where we don't stick our heads in the sand. And, I would guess that almost every Bible college or Bible school in Burma, Thailand, in Southeast Asia would be completely dry, a no alcohol policy. And then as soon as you step off the campus, it's literally in your face everywhere you go, served for breakfast. And so it does nothing to prepare the student to responsibly live in a culture where alcohol is around. And we have some students that, in the new year, we're going to try to start some sort of version of AA. And we have some students that probably shouldn't drink alcohol ever. But the reality of the life and the culture where they live is that it is around them, and it will continue to be around them, whether they drink or not, whether they like it or not, whether they have an addiction or not. And they need to find a way to live with that health in a healthy way. And the same is true with phones. We live in this society and culture and age where I really believe the devil is totally thrilled with us just scrolling on our phones. And I've said this before. I wrote this in a book once before, but I said I've lost so many friends to mediocrity, that we just get comfortable living a mediocre life, a mediocre existence. And for me, I'm a bit of I'm a go-getter. I am a dreamer, a goal setter, I want to try to live the best life that I can live. Here we go. Now we're talking New Year's Eve kind of stuff. And and when I have these friends that just are totally content to live a mediocre existence and live on their phones and live in video games, and I would end up slowly drifting away from them because we don't have anything in common, and they have no goals and no passion to. I have friends. I grew up in this small town. I have friends that have literally never been further east than Thunder Bay and never been further west than Winnipeg. And their view of the world is like 600 kilometers long. And it's just too small. And I believe it's too small for God and his kingdom. And I even believe that my dreams are too small. I read a quote. I was down in Malaysia and I read a quote that said, your goals are not impossible enough. And I had to really think about that for a while. And I'm still thinking about it. Like, we set these goals and we have these dreams that we feel are okay because it's probably possible. And this quote kind of rattled me because I thought, okay, what would it look like? I'm not young anymore. What would it look like to set holy kingdom impossible goals and goals that I can't achieve on my own? And that's the supernatural side of it. And it's kind of cool to think like, okay, I'm going to set an impossible goal of living and surviving, and not only that, but thriving in a war zone for a decade and not die or be arrested is an impossible goal. And it was not necessarily the goal a decade ago or more than a decade ago, but it turned out that that's the reality. And it's been so cool to have that come to fruition. But anyways, I want to create an environment where the students live with their phones, live with alcohol around them, and learn to react to it. And when the students got drunk on the mission, I took their phones away for a week as a punishment because they do love being on their phones. And I kind of thought, okay, this is good. You break that rule. I don't need to kick you out, but I'm just going to take your phone away. You break the rule again, I'll keep your phone for another week. You break your rule a third time, okay, I'll sell your phone on eBay and make a little money. But like, I don't know what to do about rules, but 73% want stricter rules going forward. So we're going to have to think about that. Back to the numbers. Orientation. So the first 4 weeks we do orientation. We wanted to teach some basic skills, and we also wanted to teach some basic spiritual skills, whatever the word is. But the first 4 weeks of JDS were really hard for us because we literally had no idea what we were doing. This is our first semester of our first ever class. We had no school ground. We had no food system. We had none of our supplies. We were totally winging this hour by hour. And so some of our scores were a bit low in here because I think we were making it up as we went along. But we did medical training. 47% scored it high and 47% scored it mediocre. We did security training. 43% scored it high, 16% scored it mediocre. 53% scored it mediocre. Leadership classes, 43% high, 50% mediocre. English classes, 73% of our students enjoyed English classes in the first 4 weeks. So that's kind of interesting. And only 23% said it was mediocre. Alpha, for those of you familiar with the Alpha course, it's available in Burmese, and we ran it to give everybody kind of a spiritual foundation. And 46% rated it high and 46% rated it mediocre. 57% said the translation was hard to understand. So, hey, Alpha people, slow down your translation. Only 33% said they found it highly interesting, and 60%, probably because they were being polite, found it mediocre interesting. And 10 out of 30 would recommend it to a friend or family. So interesting about Alpha. But I think it was worth it. I think it's interesting, and I think it's a resource that we can use or redo and build ourselves. But after the first 4 weeks, we had an opening ceremonies, which I talked about on the episode 1 of season 2 of our TV show. Go check that out. Really, anyways, interesting. After the opening ceremony, we transitioned into our discipleship curriculum, and we did 6 weeks of discipleship curriculum. Each week had a different theme, and we started with God's big story, and 50% of the students rated it highly enjoyed that class, and 40% mediocre, and 3 didn't like it. And okay, I'm biased because I taught that class, but I thought it was a really awesome class. The next was the character and nature of God. How have we learned God? How have we experienced or learned God? What is the actual character and nature of God? 53% found it highly interesting and 37% mediocre. Then we got into kind of the Trinity and God as Father. So we spent a whole week looking at God as Father. 60% found it highly interesting, God as Father, 30% mediocre. And then we got the next week, God as Jesus and the personality of Jesus. And 70% of our students found it highly interesting to study about God as Jesus. Then we got to God as Holy Spirit, a bit more confusing for them, and 57% found it highly interesting. And then we talked about the cross and grace, and 57% found that highly interesting. Okay, 50% of our students found the Bible classes highly interesting, and 30% of our class voted somewhere in the middle, found it highly interesting or medium interesting. Strangely, 73% of our students enjoyed PT, physical training. So every day, Monday to Friday, we do some sort of exercise, and 73% of our students found that interesting. As we shift into the mission, 80% of our students rated high or above, a very high as far as the enjoyment of the mission and going on a mission. 17% kind of in the middle, and almost everybody thought that the mission was a good length. Everybody loved the village programs for the most part, and 24 out of 30 students said they felt strong on the mission and confident on the mission because of PT. So that's kind of cool. And 22 out of 30 liked the medical program. I mean, what's not to like about bringing medicine to people? And 77%, this was interesting, 77% felt like they had enough supplies for the mission. And I find that interesting because from a logistics standpoint, I always feel like we're chasing the supplies, and like we never have enough supplies or good quality supplies or what everybody wants or needs. But 77% said they felt like they had enough supplies. And the reality of that is due to your guys' donations. And specifically, I want to give a shout out to Off Lake Church, who paid $9,000 for this mission, for the medicine, for the transportation, for the food, for the supplies, for everything for us to be able to go and do this mission that we just did. And it was huge. And our students overwhelmingly felt like they had enough equipment and were equipped to go and do that mission. So that's really cool. Okay, let's get into the spiritual questions. And this is really where I find it interesting. JDS is, and this was kind of my vision from the beginning. And I have a couple, Pastor Sheldon and Pete, we kind of do a Zoom call once a month and just kind of talk through some stuff. And they just ask challenging questions and pray for me. And so this kind of came up in one of our discussions as sort of elders for JDS, but I had opened it up to non-Christians, and there's some contention about this, like how do you disciple a non-Christian? And but for me, the reality, and this was partly due to just the nature of people who wanting to follow me, but not all of our students are Christian or would refer to themselves as a Christian. And so the first question when it came to some spiritual questions on our survey was, what religion do you identify as? And so 66% of our students identify themselves as Christian. That includes the Roman Catholic contingent that we have. And 16% of our students consider themselves Buddhist. 6% of them said that they were animist or held traditional beliefs, and 10% said they aren't sure what they believe. For me, I think these are really fascinating numbers and really just interesting to think about. And the core group of our students, 66%, have a understanding of the general idea, the general story of what we're talking about. And then we've got 10% that just are not sure. And then we've got 25% that are of another religion. And I find it really interesting. And in fact, I kind of find it exactly where we should be, because this is something I've been chewing on and thinking about, is that the disciples that followed Jesus were first Jesus followers before they were Jesus believers. And we're kind of in that boat at JDS. And there was this group of disciples, Jesus was calling them, and they thought, okay, this guy is kind, he's kind of fun, he turned water into wine, that's kind of cool. He's doing these miracles, he's drawing a crowd, maybe he is like some sort of leader or some sort of revolutionary guy, maybe this is a guy we should attach our wagons to. And they were followers of his before they were believers in him, before they were believers of him as being a part of God. And I kind of feel like we're in that place at JDS where there's some of these guys that are like, yeah, this Jesus, 70% of our students were highly interested in God as Jesus, this character of Jesus, the personality of Jesus. And then 25% of our students would not refer to themselves as Christian or identify as Christian, and yet they're highly interested in this God as Jesus. And they're Jesus followers right now. The principles that we're teaching are not against anything that they believe. They're not bad. And if one of our students referred to himself as a Buddhist Christian, and so they want a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but they're interested in this idea. And the prayer that I have, and Zadok and Claire has, and my big prayer request for you guys listening, is that head knowledge of Jesus is cool, Jesus is interesting, Jesus does amazing things, changes and moves down into their heart to, I believe in Jesus with my life. I give my heart, I give my brokenness, I give my life to Jesus, because he is the only one, the only way to be healed, to have forgiveness, to have everlasting life is only possible through Jesus. And the thing I've come to realize in this question is, and this actually kind of came to light with our Catholic students who asked on the mission if they could go to Mass. And I said to them, I said, okay, you can go to Mass, but I want you to search for Jesus while you're at Mass. He's there. And Jesus is found. He's in the Catholic Church. You can find Jesus in the Catholic Church, but you have to search for him. The same way you can find Jesus in a Baptist church or a whatever denomination you want to say, an Anglican church, all these different denominations. Jesus is there, but sometimes he is so buried under tradition and rules and these different theological debates that you have to really search for him. And other times we've put Jesus so high up into the stained glass windows that he's completely out of reach. And so I told our Catholic friends, like, okay, Jesus is there. He's at your Mass. Go to Mass and search for Jesus. Find him there, because he's there. And they went to Mass, and they actually all fell asleep. They didn't find him. So, okay, I don't really know what that point, I didn't really make a good point there. But anyways, the point of my pointed point of my point is that there is a point somewhere in here. This is my point. We often talk about, Christianity versus Buddhism, Christianity versus animism, Christianity versus Islam, Christianity versus Hinduism. What is true? What is the right religion for me? But the reality for our students that I've come to realize is that if I were to ask the 16% that are Buddhist, why are you Buddhist? If I were to ask the 6% that say that they're traditional or animist beliefs, why are you an animist? The same way, if I would ask a Catholic or somebody who grew up at Lakeside Baptist Church, why are you a Christian? Why are you a Catholic? The answer is because that's how I was raised. And the Buddhism and the animist beliefs are so ingrained into the culture, the religious, the holidays, the festivities, the festivals, the everyday activities all have to do with these beliefs and these traditions and these religions. And there's really not any heart in it. And so it's not a matter of Christianity versus Buddhism, Christianity versus animism. It's really a matter of Christianity versus culture. And I really believe in North America, there's something about that as well. That in North America, or the Western church, wherever you're listening to this, the idea is not Christianity versus another religion. The idea is Christianity versus culture and the tradition of the culture that you're being raised in and the culture that we're exposed to 24 hours a day outweighs the 1 hour to the minute, 1 hour church service that we attend on Sundays. So we are getting far more culture than we are getting Jesus. And no wonder culture is winning. No wonder culture is creeping into the church, and culture is creeping into the church because the church is not creeping into culture. And so we have our work cut out for us. And for me, as I think about the second semester and I think about the answers to this question about how they identify their religion, I have to come at it from a perspective of what does Christianity add to your culture that your culture doesn't give you? And you have to be careful there because they love their culture. And in Burma, they are fighting a war. They're literally bleeding and dying for this culture. And you don't want to go and start telling them that their culture sucks because they're dying for it. And they're not dying for Jesus. So there could be a lot. There's so much here. You need to just pause this and take a minute and be like, whoa, Jesus, what is here for me in my situation, in my life, in my world? But anyways, moving on with the numbers. 90% of our students said that they prayed on their own time while attending JDS. So keep that in mind. 25% of our students said they're not Christians, but 90% of our students said that they took an opportunity on their own when they weren't asked to really genuinely pray. So that's interesting. And 60% of our students said that the Christianity that they learned was not what they expected it to be. So 66% of our students identified as Christian, and yet 60% say that Christianity is not what they expected it to be. And to me, that speaks to the religiosity, the traditionalism that's in the Christianity in Burma, that we're introducing them to Jesus, we're introducing them to Father God, we're introducing them to the Holy Spirit that they had never been, even the Christians had never been introduced to before. And, we did this study on God as Jesus and the personality of Jesus. And we had a pig, our campus pig, who has since gone on to be Podkrapow. But this campus pig had such personality. He would do PT with the students. When the students would run the loop around the campus, this pig would follow them. When we'd go to class, the pig would run to the jungle and bite off branches and drag these branches to the back of the classroom and make a little seat or a bed for himself so that the pig could sit in the classroom. And this pig, when we would have mealtime, well, of course, mealtime, the pig would be like, hanging around and always wanting, wherever we were, this pig wanted to be with us. And I asked the question, does the pig have more personality than Jesus? And one of our students raised his hand and was like, are you allowed to say that? Are you allowed to ask that question? But the reality is that the Jesus that we have been taught, the Jesus that we claim to know, has no personality. And we don't see the personality. We don't see the playfulness of Jesus. And so when we unpacked the personality, even for the Christians that say they were Christians, it was like a whole new experience for them. And 60% of our students say Christianity is not what they expected it to be. 87% of our students say they believe in a creator God. 13% say they aren't sure, but 0% said no. All of our students were like 100% sure that there either is a creator God or that there could be a creator God, but nobody was positive that there is not a creator God, which I found that interesting. 87% of our students believe in a creator and that the earth and creation was formed by a supernatural being. So I kind of found that to be encouraging or an interesting statistics. 57% of our students said that they found it, they scored it 8 or higher on our scale of 1 to 10. 57% said they found it interesting, very interesting to be learning more about Christianity. 37% found it moderately interesting, and 10% said they found it not that interesting. 4 or lower on the scale. Here's another interesting thing. Out of new believers, 70% of new believers say that they've given their lives to Jesus while attending JDS. 10% of new believers said that they had previously given their lives to Jesus, and 20% say they have not given their lives to Jesus while attending JDS. So it's really an interesting thing, and I think there's a little bit of confusion in their minds or what's going on, but 70% of our students at some point while they're attending JDS have said, okay, Jesus, I give my life to you, or I invite you into my life. That 70% in the first semester at some point have had a conversation with Jesus about their future eternal life. I find that really interesting. 40% of our students have been baptized, and that includes our Roman Catholic contingent that had infant baby baptisms or baby dedications, baby baptisms. 50% of our students have not been baptized. 3% of our students said they don't know what baptism means. And 6% said they're interested in becoming baptized or getting baptized. So interesting statistic. That's another, I think it's fascinating and makes me excited for the second semester. Almost all, there's only 6% that voted, and this bugs me actually. This is something I think we need to improve on. But there were 6% of our students that voted kind of mediocre or lower, that they didn't feel loved and accepted at JDS. And so for me, that's stupid. And I just think like it should be a goal of ours that every student, regardless of what you believe, regardless of where you are spiritually, when you attend JDS, that you should feel that you are loved at JDS and accepted at JDS. And for me, that's a growing point for us. But overwhelmingly, almost all of them, other than 6%, maybe they were mad at me that day because I had taken their phones away from them. But overwhelmingly, people felt loved and accepted while they're attending JDS. So, and that for me, it's majority positive, but I just think every student should feel loved and accepted while they're there. And, as a hockey coach, we used to say you spend 90% of your time dealing with 10% of your team. And you can have a team of 20 players and talked on a given practice or a given day to 50% of them. And some of your players can come to the rink, get dressed, go on the ice, finish the practice, and go home without you actually engaging in them. And for me, it's like, okay, all of our students, we need to engage them by name personally each day. And so I want all of our students to feel loved and accepted while they're at JDS. All of our students, here's another statistic, all of our students except 3, so there's only 3 students that have not prayed at some point during JDS and asked God to reveal himself. And so that's kind of the premise of JDS. The idea of JDS is give God 10 months of your life and see how he's going to show up. See how God is going to reveal himself. But in order for that to happen, you've got to ask God to reveal himself. God, how will you show up? God, are you real? Are you there? And so only 3 of our students admitted to not asking God to reveal himself. The rest of our students have asked God. So yeah, that's interesting. Looking forward, our students seem to be majority excited to extend the second semester, which is a relief. The students want to see more practical things added. They want a computer class added. And this is a real God thing, but there's a lot of logistics to computers. So like you want computers, you need to have solar power to power the computers. You need to have computers to have computer class. You need to have a projector to project the computer. Like there's a lot of these things and we just didn't have it. And then just recently we had an amazing family donate and provide, basically say, what is your dream scenario for your solar setup? And I answered and outlined kind of my dream scenario. Again, maybe my dreams are not big enough, but I answered and they said, okay, we're going to pay for it all. Do it. And so they've now given us the ability to have what we need for solar. And then I just randomly Googled laptops for missionaries and found this amazing guy named Chap, who's a retired missionary. He's a retired like tech guy, computer guy, worked in the government in the States. And now he buys old laptops, old computers. He rebuilds them, repairs them, fixes them up, upgrades them, gets them working to a standard where he thinks that they're acceptable, and then sells them to missionaries. And he's donated 10 for free. He's donated 10 amazing laptops to JDS. And my friends Adam and Amy are stateside and are going to lug back 10 laptops for us. But the students are going to get a computer class. They all want to learn how to use Excel, Word, PowerPoint, and type. And so we're going to have a computer class. Half the students wanted more English lessons. And 60% of the students want to create a vision for their future. So that's interesting. And 53% want more skills taught. I'm all for all these things. I want to incorporate all these things. I don't want us to lose our focus. We're not a liberal arts school. We're not a liberal arts we're a discipleship school. And so our focus is going to remain on the discipleship curriculum, on the Bible, on the relational aspect of Jesus and the Savior aspect of Jesus. We're bringing Jesus out of the stained glass window and into a real communication relationship with the students. And so that's remaining the focus. But if we have time and resources to add extra skills, I'm all for that. I want them to leave JDS with a handful of skills in their back pocket. And so we're going to keep working on that. But anyways, there were some comments that were made, and 50% of our students said that they would be highly interested in coming back to JDS for a second year if there was an advanced course or an advanced version of JDS, which, for me, it's like, okay, man, like let's survive JDS 1 before we start thinking about what an advanced program, like, come on, give me a break here for a minute. But 50% of our students said they'd be interested in coming back a second year for a deeper dive into the spiritual disciplines and the spiritual stuff we're teaching. So that's kind of cool. 45% said they might consider a second year. 5% said, take a break, man, get out of here. So that's super interesting. And 17 out of 30 said they would be interested in coming back to JDS a second year as a junior staff member. And 7 out of 30 said they might be interested, and 6 said, get out of here. So also interesting. And then there was a spot for comments for the students, just to leave some comments. There was just to summarize, some of them wanted one-on-one meetings, full rules and regulations. Some wanted political training. One student said, be respectful of other religions since not all students are Christians. Yeah, I agree. Be respectful, but let's also, truth is sometimes not, truth can be respectful, but painful at the same time. And so we have to balance those things, and they're right. We have to balance them. Another student said, by attending JDS, I have learned so much about things I didn't understand before. And I think this is part of the concept that Christianity was not what they expected. It's not the Christianity that's being taught in the churches here. Attending JDS has taught me lessons I have never experienced before. And another student said, I've dedicated my whole life to God. That's what we want. And we reach the many to find the few. And maybe we need a class of 30, maybe we need a class of 20 or 30 students to find that one student who says, I have dedicated my whole life to God. And maybe it's worth all your hard work, which then, you work your butts off at jobs. Cam is under, he works, I bring up Cam because first of all, Cam is my bro, love him to death, love his family. They're the best. But he grinds it out underneath diesel engines of these humongous semi trailers. And one of them fell on him a year or so ago. He should have died, but Jesus protected him. But he works his butt off on a physically demanding. Micah Gerber, my buddy Micah, up there every day, hammering nails, carrying wood, bringing shingles to the roofs of these places that he's building, physically demanding jobs. All of you people that have given money to JDS are sacrificing your lives, your time, your bodies, your relationships, your marriages to do these jobs. And then you give a portion of that money to JDS. And I try to honor and steward that money as best I can. And maybe all of that work that you guys are doing, all of that money is worth it to reach many, to find a few. To reach many students with the message, with the gospel, so that a few would have that truth where it would really be true, where they can say, I've dedicated my whole life to God. So I honestly, JDS by the numbers. I don't know how to measure success. What is the success of JDS? What is, this is not the highlight reel here, but I just want you to know that God is moving, and God is moving in the North American church. I'm excited for 2025 for what God is going to continue to do in all of the churches that seem to be experiencing some sort of moving of the Spirit in North America. And I'm excited for what God is going to do in the hearts of the few students that have consented to be at JDS. And I'm going to close by reading you a blog post if you want to. I don't do this very often, but go to junglediscipleshipschool.com/blog, and you can find some of my writing on there. And we're on a break right now. I've shared a I've invited a couple of the students who didn't have anywhere else to go back to Thailand with me, and we did Christmas together, but I want to just read this as we close out 2024. This is called Bombs, Presents, and Christmas Memories. And you can find it on our blog, and you can sign up to our social media to get updates about this kind of stuff, our newsletters, and blah, 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 blah. So here we go. Bombs, Presents, and Christmas Memories. A few years ago, I bought J-Main a motorcycle. It wasn't necessarily a Christmas present, but it was around that time of year. A couple months after getting the motorcycle, he sent me a photo and said, my motorcycle died. The airplane killed it. For the past 3 years, J-Main and many of the JDS students have lived on the front lines. Their only experience with airplanes is getting bombed and shot at by them. The sound of the airplane sends shivers down my spine, even to this day. When I hear an airplane engine in the sky, my ear picks up the noise almost before it's even audible. It's like the ripple in the sound waves reaches my ear before the audible noises communicates with my brain. A threat is coming. Get ready. It's Christmas break at JDS. The first semester in our history has come and gone. We are taking a 10-day break to visit family and rest before we start second semester. Some students had nowhere to go for break and ended up following me back to Chiang Mai. My personal security and friend, KMT, was one who came back with us. I bought a small Charlie Brown Christmas tree online. It was my feeble bachelor attempt at making my house Christmassy. I decided I'd buy a little present for the guys that came to spend the holidays with me. KMT was an easy one to buy for, and I got him something small, wrapped it up in nice Christmas wrapping paper, put his name on it, and put it under the tree. I honestly didn't think too much of it. When I was a kid, we had such beautiful Christmases. I grew up in a log home on a frozen lake. We'd make a family outing into the bush and find a family tree. My dad would cut it down and we'd put it on a sled and drag it back to the house. Mom had such beautiful Christmas decorations, simple and classy. As the days counted down and the advent calendar chocolates got eaten, presents would start piling up under the tree. All shapes and sizes, wrapped up and labeled, would start to appear under the tree. Me and my brothers would take turns spying on the presents, wondering what it could be that has my name on it. On Christmas Eve, we'd always have a tortilla pie, and then we'd go out to Baptist Idol at the local church, and then come home for dessert. And we'd be able to open up one present on Christmas Eve. We usually picked the one from Grandma because we knew it was probably some socks or a knitted sweater that we'd never wear. We'd save the good stuff for Christmas morning. I didn't think much of KMT's present. It wasn't anything expensive, but when I put it under the tree in my house, I was reminded of my own Christmas memories. KMT had never, in his whole life, received a present wrapped up before. He wanted to open it right away, giggling like a little kid about it. This is my personal security man, remember? I told him he had to wait until Christmas morning. Every day, I'd come downstairs and see him holding his present. He'd shake it, squeeze it, smell it. He'd even try to peek around the wrapping paper corners. He'd have a grin on his face the whole time. KMT has received many presents in his life, but never a Christmas present, never a wrapped up gift. There's something special about the anticipation, the glimpse of love wrapped up for us. We can see it there, our name on it, but we don't know what it is, but we know someone thought of me. I had another Christmas surprise up my sleeve. Early on Christmas Eve morning, we piled into the truck and headed out of the city. The boys are used to me taking them somewhere, and they don't fully understand where we're going until they get there. That's JDS in a nutshell. But when we pulled up next to a runway, they all started smiling and laughing. We walked along the side of the runway until we came to a big hangar with its doors open. My friend Titus was in there doing his checks on the plane. "Who wants to go flying?" he said as he came over to shake their hands. The only experience the boys have with airplanes is death and destruction. We were just in Chauda a few weeks ago on our mission, and as we wandered through the streets of this once bustling little town, we were all stunned at the level of destruction. All the work of the Burma Army airplanes. I have been on the receiving end of the airplanes myself. The jets come in the middle of the night and drop their bombs, sometimes 500-pound bombs of destructions. It's horrifying. One of my students, who is here with me now, has lost 3 sisters in the same bombing that took J-Main's motorcycle. I want them to make new memories of Christmas and of airplanes. We can get so sick and tired of the commercialization of Christmas. I hate it. Shopping, buying presents, spending money, expectations. It brings my inner Grinch out. But when I see KMT sitting next to the tree, eyeing his present, I'm reminded of the little boy who used to love walking through the knee-deep snow and watching my dad mightily swing the axe to chop down our tree. I am reminded of the boy who used to try to figure out what was under the wrapping paper. I am reminded of the joy and of anticipation. I want the boys to laugh and have fun in the airplane. Its original design isn't for death and destruction, but rather for joy and wonder and whimsy and excitement, kind of like us. Our original human design wasn't for killing each other and sinning, but rather for adventures with God, for walking and talking with God. 'Tis the season of Emmanuel, God with us. God invaded our stories a few thousand years ago in a little barn in the suburbs. But God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. He is still Emmanuel, God with us. Where do you need God with you today, this season? I know he is with all the soldiers in Burma on the front lines getting bombed. He is Emmanuel, God with the KNLA. Emmanuel, God with the KNPP and KNTF and KA and KIA and AA and CNF and PDFs and all the groups fighting for freedom. He really is Emmanuel, God with you. As I watch KMT sit next to the tree with the grin on his face, I can't help but think about the fact that Jesus will come again. We should also sit with a grin on our faces as we wait, like KMT on Christmas morning, anticipation building for the unwrapping, the unraveling of love. Merry Christmas, friends. Happy New Year, friends. From all of us at JDS and from myself specifically, thank you. Thank you for being with us. I love you all. Keep journeying with us. 2025 is going to be awesome for you. It's going to be so much fun for JDS. And I want you to be a part of the ride, the journey. Yeah. God bless you. And God bless your 2025. Amen.